Actually, number 2 should be solve, right? We simplify expressions. There's no equal sign. I'm going to show you guys 2 ways of simplifying number 1. The first way I'm going to use is called the power rule. The power rule applies with exponents. I'm going to take this 2, which is on the outside of the parentheses, and I'm going to distribute to its powers. So this means I get I squared, and this means I get radical 3, this expression squared, or you can put that one power on the 2 on the outside. Class, what's I squared? Radical 3 squared is radical 9, which is what? So negative 1 times 3 gives you negative 3. Raise your hand if you got that. Let me show you a second way of doing this. The power of 2 tells you you have how many of these expressions? 2. And then I can just multiply the coefficients. I squared. And then radical 3 times radical 3 is just what? And it's essentially the same thing as over here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Negative 1 times 3, which is negative 3. Okay. Second problem doesn't tell us to simplify. We should be solve. And if you notice, I have a power of 2 here. Most students would solve powers of 2 by setting it equal to 0. So quadratics, most of the time, they set it equal to 0. They would do something like this. 3x squared, add the 26 to both sides, and you get 3x squared plus 36 equals 0. And then they would probably, you could do it by factoring, right? Take out GCF, x squared plus 12 equals 0. Set each of those equal to 0. Subtract 12. Take the square root of both sides. I have x equals, remember plus or minus when you take the square root of an equation. And then negative 12 is negative 1 times 4 times 3. Class, what's the square root of negative 1? What's the square root of 4?
2.
And where does the 3 go? It stays there. So this way I'm solving by factoring. Let's say you want to do this by quadratic formula. You could have just put 3x squared plus 0x plus 36, and your a value is 3, b is 0, and c is 36, right? Mm-hmm. But this problem actually lends itself to a different method. Does anyone know what that method's called? No, it's not that method. It's called the square root method. This method says move the constant to the right side. It usually works best when you only have one variable, and the variable is the power of 2. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. I get 3x squared equals negative 36. I'm not going to take the square root yet. I want to get isolated, so I have divided by 3. I'm left with x squared equals negative 12. And if I take the square root of both sides, then you'll get the same answer as before. X equals plus or minus 2i radical 3. So this method is the square root method.